Hello, everybody. I'm Jack Mulcahy, and I'm here with the Keith Andrew Network, and I'm really pleased to have some time with my friend Keith here, my newly found friend Keith, my new best friend. Enjoy.
So the first question I want to ask you is tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you do now.
Well, my name is Jack Mulcahy. I was born and raised in New York City. I'm actually living in the same apartment that I was born in. It's a big 4-bedroom rent-controlled apartment on the Upper West Side here in Manhattan. I have been a member of the Screen Actors Guild for almost 40 years now. My first feature film was Porky's. Before that, I was a studio rat at Atlantic Records. I'm also a singer and a songwriter. And I toured with Foreigner many, many years ago. And I have had quite a bit of success in the music business, but then also my first feature made about $200 million on a $2 million budget. And I am still collecting residuals thanks to my union, the Screen Actors Guild, and now Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. I'm also now actively involved with the union. I'm on the New York local board. I'm a national board alternate. I'm also on the TV and Theatrical Contracts Negotiating Committee. I'm the vice chair of the Low Budget Film Committee, and I'm also on the SAG Indie Film Committee.
Absolutely. And if I look down, I'm not like ignoring you. I'm looking at your IMDb.
Yeah, you're doing your research.
So you mentioned you were in Porky's.
Yes.
You know, for people who grew up in the 80s, that's actually one of the hit movies. And that opened the doors for like so many great things, like putting me on the spot. American Pie. Do you look at
Diner? Mm-hmm.
Oh, I never heard of that one.
Yeah, Diner. Yeah, the first Barry Levinson's first feature. Actually, they were holding off to release it. They didn't know whether they would indeed until they saw the success of Porky's, and that gave them the go ahead. And I'm glad they did because it's a great movie.
Yeah, I would definitely check that out. You know, you like we said, Porky's, the Diner that you say, American Pie. You look at every era has. I can't think of the first name, but it's Times of Richmond High. With Mr. Hand. That's another classic. So
it's Bill Bixby. Yeah. Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Yeah, it's a fantastic film. Yeah.
It's one of my favorites.
Yes.
But you have 4 movies that define, the 80s, early 90s, 2000s. I don't really think there's actually anything for this generation. I mean, there's Hangover in 2008, but there's no movies that actually is for this genre. Do you think there's one eventually going to come out?
I mean, eventually going to come out. I don't know, eventually, but comedies tend to have their periods, right? They have their golden ages and their periods. And an awful lot has to do with the tone of where the country is at. And I think where we are right now, I think we are in desperate need of great comedies, but I would like to say that, comedies like Bridesmaids and comedies like Wedding Crashers and stuff like that, these are hilarious blockbuster films as well. I don't know if they'll ever achieve the iconic status of the 4 films that you mentioned, but certainly I look forward to seeing as many of those as possible in the near future. I'm actually writing a sitcom myself called Meet the McGillicuddies. So hopefully that will wind its way into the national conscience.
No, I agree. Now, to cover our fans out there, you were in a couple of hit TV shows. One of them is Blue Bloods. I actually interviewed a lot of people who were extras in Blue Bloods who do actually have recalling roles. Now, I would love to work with Tom Selleck, even though the reverse mortgages is kind of like, what deal is that? By Donnie Wahlberg. It's really good. They're all fantastic. It's a great show. But what was your experience about working on Blue Bloods?
Well, let me rewind for a second. So the show has been on now. I think it's in its 14th season. 13th or 14th season. And I have auditioned for that show 14 times before I landed this top of show guest starring role. And it was well worth the wait. And I'll tell you why. Because not only was I given, the front credit, and they spelled my name correctly, which is always a bonus. Right before I was about to shoot the thing, one of my friends, Clyde Kusatsu, who I've known through union service over the years, did 55 episodes of Magnum PI with Tom Selleck. And so he just sent me a text and he said, please tell Tom that I said hi. And so when I got on set, Tom came up to me. He was very gracious, said, welcome to the Blue Bloods family. And I said, hey, we have a mutual friend, Clyde Kusatsu. And he goes, oh my God, how is Clyde? And the ice was completely broken. And so we had this wonderful rapport before we even started filming. And the scenes themselves were quite adversarial because I had kind of screwed up in my capacity as the Manhattan Borough cop, the top cop of the Manhattan Borough, the commander, during a blackout. And so it was kind of intense. And I just had such a feeling that we were just peers. We were just exchanging this one particular scene. And it just came off so natural and so wonderful. And it wound up to be one of the most popular episodes of the year. So.
No, absolutely. And my sister actually, I think she liked the series or the movie, or it could be my mom. I can't remember. Well, one of them, they actually like Sex in the City, and you were actually a part of that.
Yes. I'm Charlotte's brother, Wesley. And I have the distinct designation as the only sibling that was ever introduced on the show. And again, my first day on the show, I was very excited to book that. That only took about 2 or 3 auditions before I booked that role. And when I booked it, I was very excited because I was going to work again with Kim Cattrall, with whom I had worked on Porky's 18 years before that. So when I got to the set, Kim came up to me. She was very gracious. She goes, hey, so welcome to the show and blah, blah, blah. We'll run lines later if you like. I go, Kim, yeah, sure. And so she scooted off, and then I went into my trailer, and then I get a knock on my trailer, and it's Kim. She goes, could I come in for a second? Comes in. She goes, so the wardrobe people tell me that you did Porky's with me? I said, Kim, I was Frank Bell. I was the kid, screwing around corners, right? And she this look of recognition on her face was like, oh my God, this big hugs. And she goes, oh, we're going to have such a great time. And it really, really showed on camera. So those kinds of chemistries, they really, really do work. And it's like magic when the camera picks all that stuff up.
No, absolutely. One thing for me is, like I mentioned, just trying to get the right angle. I have a script and I'm like, okay, act this question, act that one. And there are other seasons where I'm just, it's uncensored, throwing shit against the wall. And I'm like, that's what people want to see. They want to see your real self. How do you feel? What is your opinion? Do you like reading a script or do you like ad-libbing?
Well, it depends on the writer. There's an old joke. How many writers does it take to change a light bulb? Change. What do you want to change? Right? So it depends. I mean, on Blue Bloods, I had a little bit of an issue with how I would deliver a certain line. And I took the writers aside and I said, if I say it this way, it's saying the same thing, but it comes off of the tongue much easier. And they huddled in the corner and they came back to me. She goes, say it the way you want to say it. And I had the freedom to do that. Again, I was top of show guest star, right? So it's not like I was a co-star or I was background or anything like that. But, you kind of know after so many years of doing this, what leniency they're going to give you. And in terms of the acting itself, it's always, as a drama coach, I always tell a lot of my clients, bring as much of you as possible to the character because that gives it life. And that gives it the performance, that organic quality that we're all searching for.
You hit the nail on the head on that one. Actually, that's one of the questions I want to ask you. And the first one, for that fact, how do you build a character? Now, you were in Porky's, you were in Sex in the City, you were in Blue Bloods. You did fantastic for yourself. So you made a character for yourself. For someone with learning disabilities or anyone out there that has disabilities, how do you build that character? And you don't want to be one-dimensional either.
No, not at all. And some people, think about, oh, I have to play funny, or I have to play tough, or I have to play mean. It's like, no, you have to be mean. You have to be funny. You have to be tough. And that all starts with the script. Okay. So I always talk about tone and concentric circles. So it's the tone of the piece, the tone of the scene, and then the tone of the characters in that particular scene. And if you start to break it down like that and you get really granular with it, then you can become specific with your choices. And as a drama coach, I'm always pleading with my actors to have the thoughts of the character. So the thoughts of the actor should be the thoughts of the character. What if I were, what might I do? Even down to the specifics of what would I wear in this particular scene, right? Doctors, lawyers, dentists, construction workers, they all have a mindset. And, you kind of think about what is a day in their life like? And then you start to build that. In the Brothers McMullen, I had an affair, and I know so many men who have had affairs. And so I look back on that and think about, how they dealt with that kind of guilt, and, whether they were able to resolve it, whether they've just lived with it and sat in silence with it. And, and being an Irish Catholic, you have that sense of guilt, so all those kinds of things, they build on top of each other to the point where once that camera rolls, you've already got that. And then it's the words, and then the words and movement. And that what makes the performance so incredibly organic and riveting and compelling.
I agree. Now, the other follow-up question I want to ask about is, what is hard about catering and building to the right audience?
That's really not the job of the actor, right? I think that's the job of the studios or whoever's trying to promote the film. I think every actor doesn't go in, oh, I want to please people, right? Or I don't know how this is going to resonate, right? So you have the task is right in front of you. It's on the page and you're reading your script, right? And so you can start to formulate, and 9 times out of 10, the audience will appreciate it. Sometimes they will love it. Sometimes they'll just be looking at their watch, can't wait to get out of the theater. That's not up to you, right? That's completely out of your control.
I agree. Well, let me ask this, and then I flip the camera around. Flip the camera. I'm looking at the camera, so I'm thinking about the camera. Let's flip the question around. What is your opinion about my show? And do you think I'm doing the right thing? I should do a different angle, different effects. How would you coach me?
I don't know if I would. I don't know if I have enough experience watching your show. This is the first time I've seen your show. And it's you're asking the right questions, and you have really cool backgrounds and all that kind of stuff. And I've seen a couple of 40-second clips, of people who do voiceovers and stuff like that. So it would be hard for me to critique it. All I know is that you're asking the right questions of me, and I'm having a really good time right now.
No, I appreciate that. Now, one thing I do want to talk about, hint of the show about disabilities, is, have you ever worked, it sounds like an oxymoron, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. Have you worked with people with disabilities, and are you willing to work with people with learning disabilities?
Absolutely. I have my work with PWDs has been very limited. However, I am noticing more and more that there are characters on shows and in feature films that do have disabilities, and I'm all for it. As a matter of fact, the union has made a concerted effort to have people with disabilities really, really come to the fore because they have so much to offer. They really, really do. And their perspective is different than pretty much everybody else's. And they can act. I mean, there's nothing keeping people from acting, right? And, you know, that I don't think that that's really a disability if you can promote, you know, the characters that you want to promote. And it doesn't even have to be a person with a disability in that particular genre or in that particular piece, right? They just are, because people with disabilities are people first, right?
I agree. Now, going back to what you said, you were a part of SAG Extras for 40 years. So you met a lot of upgrade people, a lot of upcoming people, and a lot of people, what do you say, has talent but didn't really deserve the spotlight?
Well, again, that's, you know, that's not up for me to decide.
Right.
And I also tell a lot of my acting clients that once you see somebody's booked something that you were up for and that I coached you on, I don't ever want to hear a disparaging word about who got it, because they got it and you didn't. Okay, so we just move on to the next one. It's out of your control once you are out of that audition room. And you would not want to begrudge somebody their success because you don't want that thrown back on you.
No, you're right. You know, my dad's always says about people who you know, never burn any bridges, because you don't, as you're climbing that ladder of success, the same people as you meet going up are the same people you're going to meet going down. So it's always good to be on a good rapport because you don't want to burn any bridges.
No, you don't. And, you know, about 5 or 6, no, maybe 10 years ago, I made a concerted effort of working with students. And I've done student films. I've done student films for NYU, for USC, for SVA, and for Columbia University. And lo and behold, several of those directors have gone on to do feature films and have hired me. So it's kind of like an investment in my own career to work with these young filmmakers on the way up.
Absolutely. And one person, my friend, I should consider him a friend, and he said to me, it's not the destination that matters, it's the journey.
It is the journey. It's the struggle. And that's what Tennessee Williams wrote in his preface before the first showing of Streetcar Named Desire. He said, because the clock is always ticking, and it doesn't say tick, it says loss, 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 loss. So what are you doing? He says, and once you reach the pinnacle, it's almost like, where do I go from here? So it's always the journey for me that has the most rewarding experiences.
Well, let me ask you this question, because one person said this to me when I used to work over at the North Face, and I went back, and the person said to me, why do you want to work here? You're too good to work here. Someone said to you, if you were going for an acting or writing, why are you doing this? This is beneath you. You're too good for you. Or this is too good for you. How would you describe that to somebody?
Well, again, you know, people's opinions are like noses. Everybody's got one and they all smell, right? So it's, I've been very careful with the projects that I have chosen. And I'm at the point right now where I rarely have to audition. Roles are offered to me now, which is a wonderful place to be as an actor. And I have turned down work that I just didn't think was, you know, moving my path, you know, moving me along the path that I wanted to go. I've played these certain roles. I played this, or I played this guy. And it's like, I would rather be somebody who's really interesting as I get older and I get into a more character classification. But I'm writing now as well. And as they say, if you want a really, really, really great part, write one for yourself.
I agree. Or create something for yourself. Like that's what my talk show did for me.
That's right. That's exactly right. And
So
kudos on that.
No, absolutely. I didn't mean to interrupt. I do apologize.
No, it's okay. I was done.
So the next question I want to ask you is, these two actually look really good, so I'm going to ask, how can someone get involved with your work? As you mentioned, you do coach people, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And the second question is, how did you get involved with this kind of work in the first place?
Oh, well, that happens in different circumstances, right? I started my first rock and roll band when I was 16 years old. And then I fell into a group of musicians, and then I started playing softball, and somebody from the Atlantic Records softball team said, "Hey, man, do you want to come to the studio? I don't know if it's going to pay much, but you know the music business. So do you want to be like a studio rat and barter some time for recording time?" And so that's what I did. And I played with Foreigner and Hall and Oates and Chaka Khan and George Benson and Josh and Steve Gadd and just like all these wonderful, wonderful musicians. And I was like in my early 20s, right? And it was like a whole world had opened up for me. So I was already a performer. But then my next door neighbor, Gary Gotch, was an associate producer for films. And I had met Bob Clark, who wound up directing Porky's. I had met him when I was about 17 or 18 years old. And he had asked Gary if I was an actor. And Gary goes, "No, Jack's a musician. I don't think he has any acting experience." He goes, "Well, you know, when I finally get the money to do Porky's, that kid's going to be in my film." Okay. So 8, 9 years later, he had the money to do Porky's, and he called me up and he goes, "Hey, do you want to come down for a couple of weeks, have some acting lessons, be a glorified extra in a movie?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not?" So I went down there, had my long flowing locks, and the wardrobe assistant is like getting me my nice clothes from the 1950s. She's looking at my hair. She's like, "Oh my God, such a shame to have to cut that hair." I'm like, "What are you talking about? You could just cut it a little bit and give me a ducktail." She goes, "Oh, honey, no, this is 1954, not 56. And sure, it all came off. And yeah, so that was a bit of luck. And within 3 days, 20th Century Fox saw me in the rushes and asked Bob Clark about me. And they said, "We like this kid, write him into the entire script." So right at that moment, I had my Screen Actors Guild card and I was off to the races. And here we are, 150 television and theater productions and films later.
That was an amazing story.
It is. It really is. I sometimes think about it myself.
How do you feel about writing a book?
It's been mentioned. So.
Well, I'm not a big fan of books, because I'm not saying books are bad, even though I am going to work on one.
Sure.
But because it takes me longer to read something and do something, listening to an audiobook, kind of, you can sit back and close your eyes and you can visualize how it goes. So an audiobook would be a great thing as well.
It would, believe me. And you're not the first one to mention it.
Now, the other one I want to ask you, it's two groups you mentioned, Hall and Oates. I did not have the chance to see, but I did see Foreigner. See, it's 22, so about maybe early 2020, early 2019, before the crap hit the fan.
Yeah.
What was it like to actually, did you sit down and have drinks with Hall and Oates and Foreigner, or what was?
No, I was basically in and out as a studio rat to help them, right? If they needed something, I would go get it for them. If they needed something tweaked and the actual engineer wasn't there, I was able to like work the board for them. I actually worked with Keith Richards on the Peter Tosh album, which was a lot of fun and crazy. And I would help Mick Jagger walk around the Upper West Side because he didn't know his way around. So, those kinds of things were wonderful. But I did do background vocals for Foreigner, which was really, really exciting. And then when you see the machine of Atlantic Records, which is one of the biggest record companies in the world, behind their biggest act in the world, And they're just like regular guys who like to screw around, and they love girls, they love drinking, and they love to play music. Well, so did I.
I'm not a big drinker. I do socially.
I'm 18 years sober.
Take my cap off to you.
Thank you.
I drink only, if it's a birthday, it's a holiday, but you're not going to see me walking around with a bottle or a flask or anything. But the other one I did want to ask you, wrapping up on the last 4 minutes, last question I want to ask you, what was the last time you tried something new?
Let's see. Not too long ago, because I'm so incredibly interested in learning new stuff. And I think that the latest thing I found myself into was something like TikTok or various brand new apps. And it's because people have brought them to my attention that I was in a TikTok clip. And there was one TikTok clip that just absolutely exploded. I think right now it's got over 8 million views. And it's my scene in the kitchen with Samantha and my sister Charlotte of Sex and the City. And it was about that time I was like going, oh my God, look at how many incredible people are following me and I don't even know it, right? So that's one thing. The other thing, and I'd like to plug this, is that I did a children's after school special back in 1988 called Creating Rem Lazar. And it is about two 9-year-old kids who separately dream up their imagination of what they imagine to be their superhero. And it's one and the same. And so they go and they build him and they fall asleep. And before you know it, I've come to life. And we go searching for the highest point of the imagination. It's a 45-minute film. It was only shot on 16 millimeter. And it just, we had maybe 9,000 copies, VHS copies printed. This was in 1988. With the resurgence of the internet, somebody found it, and before you know it, it has exploded. So we just found the 1-inch master. We've redigitized it to 1080. It looks beautiful. The soundtrack is perfect. It's a musical. And we are about to re-release it on Blu-ray. And we're all going to T-shirts and lunch boxes and an animated feature. So these are all new different things that I have been, completely excited about.
That was amazing. Just listening to your stories, you're really inspiring me to follow my dreams.
Thank you, Keith. That's really nice to say.
Oh, absolutely. Now, with the last 2 minutes, I do have a couple questions for you off the air.
Sure.
But I know a lot of people are like, why didn't you ask this one? Did you ask this question? Well, my last 2 questions for you is, I want you to be brutally honest. When I first approached you to be on my talk show, what made you say yes? How do you feel now? Would you recommend it? And for the people who want to know about Sex in the City and in Goonies, do you keep in touch with any of those people?
Well, first of all, you came to me with a very honest inquiry, and I've done a million of these things, and people with disabilities are part of my community, right? And it's my union service, and I find myself in service not only to my union, but to my fellow AA members and my union brothers and sisters. But they always say that the 2 most important days of a person's life is the day they're born and the day they figure out why. And I figured out why I was born, and that was to help people. So if this helps anybody, then I'm certainly willing to do it. And now to your second question, I'm really, really happy that I have.
No, I appreciate it. And out of everyone that you worked with, who are the 2 top people that you keep in touch with?
Oh, let me see. So I'm still in touch with Ed Burns. who did Brothers McMullen. We did that for $15,000 film, went to Sundance, won Best Picture. So you keep in touch with people like that who have like who you've made magic with. And the woman who played my wife, Connie Britton, who's a fantastic actress and has blown up completely. So we're in touch.
No, absolutely. I don't want to cut the conversation short, but we are going over time.
Okay.
Do have a couple questions for you off the air.
All
But
right.
our fans and listeners, make sure to subscribe to my good friend whenever, especially when this pandemic summer. I would love to get a drink with you. You know,
Yes.
I'm not a drinker, but you can definitely do something.
Absolutely.
But your Instagram will be on the bottom of the screen. Everyone, make sure to like and subscribe to the Keith Andrew Network, available on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, all social medias. A big thank you and shout out to my friend for being a guest on the Keith Andrew Network. Your description will be in the description box as well with all your medias. So everyone, definitely check it out. But wrapping up for our talk show, it was a real honor and privilege. And until we meet again, catch you later. Thank you and have a good night.